Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today's video is going to be my quick review of the new AP Top 10, and just like last week, I'm going to do the Brandon Todd Top 10 as well. And just like last week, with the exception of a couple teams at the bottom of the top 10, it's the same teams, just maybe a little bit different order. But we'll get to that coming up here in just a minute. I thought about doing this later on in the week, and then there was other things I wanted to talk about later on in the week, and I know that it'll be week 5 before you know it, because week 5 starts on Thursday. So I thought I'll go ahead and do it on Monday and get it over with. In case you have not seen the new AP Top 10, it comes out on Sundays now. We've got Alabama at number 1, Georgia at number 2, Oregon at number 3, Penn State is up to number 4, Iowa rounds out the top 5, and then 6 through 10 is Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Arkansas jumps all the way up to number 8, and then Notre Dame is 9th, and the Florida Gators round out the top 10. Before I get to my top 10, I wanted to go ahead and throw a few other college football topics in here since we're on the subject of college football. I didn't mention this in yesterday's video, and then I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and bring it up, and that was Bowling Green beating Minnesota. Now, both teams suck, so it's not really worth mentioning. I'm just mentioning it because of the fact Bowling Green beat Minnesota. Now, Bowling Green is supposed to be one of the bottom 5 teams in the country this year, but if you recall, when P.J. Fleck was first hired at Minnesota away from Western Michigan, Minnesota was a top 10 team his first couple of years, and everybody wanted him. And he was just a cliche master. You know, he had the row the boat thing, and everybody wanted him. And now, if Minnesota don't get turned around, he'll be on the hot seat heading into next year. So it just goes to show that it's not always a coach in long term. It can just be something short term, but they're definitely nowhere near where they were a few years back when he first took that job. Also wanted to talk about the quarterback situation at Clemson for a few minutes, because I know I have a lot of Clemson fans that watch the channel, and I also know I have a lot of people that are just college football fans in general that keep up with, you know, anybody and everybody. So I wanted to discuss this, and that is the quarterback situation, because in my personal opinion, and maybe it's just me, but in my personal opinion, I haven't seen anything that DJ has done wrong. If you watched the NC State game on Saturday, they went deep one time and he threw the pass and it was perfect. And the defender tackled the receiver, which was the right move, because in the NFL, if you do that, it's a spot foul. But in college, it's a 15-yard penalty. So taking a 15-yard penalty was better than giving up a 60-yard pass or a touchdown. So the defender did the right thing, but the pass was right on the money. So it shows that DJ can throw accurately deep. They just don't throw deep. So I personally think Clemson's problems on offense are much deeper than the quarterback. But I know the most popular player on every team in the history of all time in football is always the backup quarterback. But if you recall, in 2017, they made the playoffs with Kelly Bryant. But in 2018, after 3 games, they went ahead and benched Kelly Bryant for Trevor Lawrence, because Dabo said, I think Trevor gives us a better chance to win. So if Dabo made that decision just 3 years ago because Trevor had more talent than Kelly did, there's no doubt in my mind that if Dabo thought that Tyson had more talent than DJ, he would make the change. Now, maybe DJ doesn't have the intangibles, and maybe that's what he's missing, but I think from a pure talent standpoint, it's clear that DJ is the better quarterback. Tyson's been on the roster since 2019, so he's actually been on the team longer than DJ has. But now that they have 2 losses, if there's going to be a quarterback change, it will be going into the Boston College game this upcoming Saturday. But I think if it is a quarterback change, it's because DJ's missing some of the intangibles, which sometimes mean just as much, if not more, than the actual skill set. But I think from a pure skill talent standpoint, it's clear that DJ is better. I just don't see what he's done wrong. It's just their offense is just missing something. And I've been saying that all year long, and I still feel that way. But also, there's also been a rumor since about summertime that Robbie Caldwell, who is the offensive line coach, is going to retire after this season. So that could have something to do with it. Maybe Dabo is, thinking about who's going to be the next offensive line coach and not worrying about the current season. That could have something to do with it. But there's also been a rumor that Tony Elliott, who is the offensive coordinator, has big-time interest in a head coaching job. Now, if he does, he ain't going to wow anybody with the offense they're using right now. But Tony Elliott has been there for a long time. I know a lot of people want to blame him for the play calling, and it has been terrible. Their offense is not any better now than it was for the Georgia game. It's the same offense. If anything, it's going backwards. But I will say Tony Elliott's been there for a long time. Even when Jeff Scott was there, Tony Elliott called about 2/3 of the plays. So even when they had co-coordinators, Tony Elliott still called the majority of the plays. So when Jeff Scott left, he wasn't new to being a coordinator. He was new to being a full-time only coordinator and not splitting the play calling duties with Jeff Scott. But like I said, he still called 2/3 of the plays when Jeff Scott was there, and the offense worked then. So I still think there's something beyond the football field that's going on this year. And we also got to remember that Dabo is having to adjust, because Dabo is one of the few big-time coaches that will not recruit anybody out of the transfer portal. He just will not do it. If you're leaving your program trying to transfer, you will not go to Clemson. Dabo just does not recruit players out of the transfer portal. He doesn't do it. He's got several reasons why. He just don't do it. So if he doesn't change that, he'll never get players out of the transfer portal, because that's his way of thinking. And not only that, Dabo has also been the kind of coach to where if you go to Clemson, it doesn't matter if the next game is against Oklahoma in the playoffs. If you did something that was detrimental to yourself or the team, he would sit you. He didn't care who you played. He would always say, making these boys into good men is more important than the football game. That was always Dabo's philosophy. He would rather take a loss and make you sit because of whatever you did than have you play and then get by with whatever you did. And a lot of coaches, they'll say, well, we punished him in-house, which in reality means nothing happened. Or, if your next game's against Rutgers, they'll say, well, we'll suspend him for the Rutgers game. Well, that really means you did nothing. But Dabo never cared who you were playing. If you did something wrong, you wasn't going to play. But now with the transfer portal, you really can't do that, because now if you bench a player for whatever he did, he's just going to transfer. So, Dabo's having a hard time realizing that he just can't punish these guys the way he used to could punish these guys. But there's no doubt in my mind they will get it turned around eventually, not a doubt. Like I said in yesterday's video, everything comes to an end. This is not the year. Next year may not be the year, but eventually they will get back into the playoffs, whether it's 4 teams, 6 teams, 8 teams, ever how many, they'll get back there. And also I wanted to mention Florida State. I know I said in Saturday's video that if they lost Saturday, I couldn't tell you the last time they were 0-4, but they did lose Saturday, and they are 0-4, and I believe I saw that it's the first time since 1978 that they're 0-4, and of course a lot of people are already wanting to fire Mike Norvell because Willie Taggart got fired after 21 games, and if you look at Mike Norvell's record, it's no better than Willie Taggart's record. But if you watch Florida State play, they are playing a lot better football than they were when Willie Taggart was there. I'll never forget when Taggart was there. There was one game where the wide receiver turned around backwards and was lined up like he was playing defensive back. So that they were just clueless. So at least this team is playing disciplined football. They just, for whatever reason, can't put it together. And then last but not least, I wanted to bring up the referee situation because I read an article a couple of weeks ago that said they are in dire need of referees for high school football and any other kind of football, which is not surprising because we all know nowadays in the job market, most jobs are in dire need of employees. So, of course, referees are no different. I've never been the type of fan to blame a loss on a referee. I just won't do it. There's too many things that your team could have done differently in a football game to where that one play that referee missed wouldn't have mattered. Anybody that blames a loss on a referee, that's a cop-out for you just not wanting to be man enough to say, we got beat. So I've never been that type of person. I just won't do that. But I will say they are in dire need of referees. So if you know somebody that wants to get into refereeing for football, now is the time. I recall in 2010, I actually refereed and umpired for Little League Baseball for that 1 year to go along with my 14 years of being a pro wrestling referee. So if I wasn't on the injured list right now, I may consider doing it just for a year or two to see if I could do it. But of course, right now, I can't do anything anywhere close to doing that. But I did want to bring up all those topics along with our top 10 AP poll countdown. So if you have any thoughts on any of those, please feel free to let me know. Now we'll go ahead and get into the Brandon Todd top 10. My number one team this week, just like last week, it's still Georgia. I know Georgia really hasn't done anything impressive because that win against Clemson looks less and less impressive as the year goes on. But Georgia can't help that. When that game was scheduled, it was supposed to be two top 5 football teams. And then, of course, the UAB game, every team, every year, has 1 or 2 games where you pay somebody $1 million to come to your stadium and you beat them. Everybody does that. That was Georgia's game this year. They've got one coming up later on in the year in November, but every team has those 1 or 2 games a year. Now, of course, the last 2 games have been conference games, but like I always say, if your conference sucks, you can't help it. Nothing you can do about it. Georgia can't help the Gamecocks are terrible. Georgia can't help Vanderbilt's terrible. I mean, Vanderbilt scored 3 points against East Tennessee State in week 1. So we knew Vanderbilt was just a hot pile of garbage. But Georgia can't help that. But I've also seen Georgia times in the past play a pitiful team like South Carolina or Vanderbilt, and Georgia would win the game, but it would be a fourth quarter game. At least this year against South Carolina and Vanderbilt, those 2 teams are bad, and Georgia took care of business early and often. So in my opinion, Georgia's still the best team in the country as of right now. Alabama is number 2. I think those 2 teams are far and away better than anybody else in the country right now. Iowa is number 3. I've got Penn State number 4. Oregon is 5th in my top 10 countdown. Oklahoma is 6th. Cincinnati is 7th. Notre Dame is 8th. And I've got Arkansas 9th and Ole Miss 10th. I just think Ole Miss is a better program right now than Florida. And I think if Ole Miss and Florida played this Saturday, I think Ole Miss would beat them. So I think Ole Miss rounds out my top 10 just like they did last week. But they play Alabama this upcoming Saturday, so we'll find out this week just how good Ole Miss is. I think that's going to be a fourth quarter down to the wire game. I'm excited already about the games coming up this Saturday. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I lost my voice today. I can't tell you how annoying it is. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.